Tonight, we travel to a place where snow falls in perfect silence, where warm lights glow behind frosted windows, and where every smile may be hiding a secret. A remote winter resort, tucked away among endless mountains and whispering pines. A place built for rest, comfort, and quiet luxury. A place where wealthy guests arrive seeking peace, but instead find themselves standing at the edge of a mystery. Behind the elegance and refined manners, something dark is slowly awakening. A young orphan, heir to a vast fortune, surrounded by people who appear kind, people who offer sympathy, people who claim to care. Yet someone among them carries a hidden intention, someone who has chosen poison instead of truth. Tonight, we will step into a story where nothing is accidental, where every glance matters, every word holds weight, and every silence speaks louder than a scream. Let your thoughts grow quiet. Let the outside world fade away, and allow this story to unfold, one careful whisper at a time. Here on our channel, ASMR Dreams, stories of people from different eras, different professions, and different destinies come alive. And while we have not yet stepped into their world, take a moment to subscribe, and afterward, you may share your impressions in the comments. And now, we continue. There are places in this world where people do not come for health, but for the illusion of it. Baden-Baden, in the winter of 1852, was exactly such a place. Snow covered the tiled rooftops like sugar icing on a Christmas pastry. Steam rose from beneath the ground, from the hot springs, creating the strange impression that the city itself was breathing. Heavy, damp breaths, with a faint taste of sulfur and of other people's secrets. Dr. Karl Weber knew that taste all too well. 45 years old, an age when a man either begins to sum up his life or carefully avoids doing so. Weber belonged to the second category. Every morning he awoke in his modest rooms on Lichtental Alley. He listened to the crunch of snow beneath carriage wheels outside his window, and he thought that today would be just like yesterday, and yesterday had been just like the day before, and so on, deep into months and years, back to that one moment he tried very hard not to remember. That December morning, the thermometer outside showed -12. Weber dressed carefully, as he always did, a gray frock coat, a waistcoat the color of old Bordeaux wine, a starched collar. The mirror reflected a face with a neatly trimmed beard, already touched with gray, and the eyes of a man who had seen too much and was surprised by very little. A visit to Baroness von Krause at 11, he reminded himself, fastening his coat. Baroness von Krause was his most regular patient. For 7 years she had suffered from a mysterious ailment which Weber privately called the disease of boredom. The symptoms changed with the seasons. In spring, migraines. In summer, palpitations. In autumn, melancholy. In winter, neuralgic pains of unclear origin. Her husband had died 12 years earlier, leaving her a fortune and an empty mansion. Since then, she had been searching for ways to fill that emptiness. Weber stepped outside and inhaled the frosty air. The resort town was waking slowly, as befits a place where no one is truly in a hurry. A carriage with a noble crest rolled past. Some guest was heading toward the baths. Shop windows on Sophienstraat were already decorated for Christmas. Fir branches, red ribbons, wax angels with gilded wings. A holiday, Weber thought without emotion. Just another holiday. The Baroness's mansion greeted him with warmth and the scent of lavender water. A maid led the doctor into the drawing room, where the hostess already reclined on a couch in the pose of a suffering heroine from a novel. "Dr. Weber," she exclaimed in a voice that held not a trace of real suffering. "I feared you would not come. Such dreadful weather. Weather is no obstacle to medical duty, Baroness." He sat beside her and removed his stethoscope from his bag. The ritual perfected over years. Listen to the heart. Check the pulse. Ask a few questions. Receive lengthy answers. I hardly slept at all, the Baroness complained. Such heaviness in my chest, and my hands feel numb. Are you sure this isn't apoplexy? Quite sure. Your heart works like a clock. Try sleeping with your pillows slightly raised, and less coffee after 6 in the evening. The Baroness pouted. She was 53, but painted her face like a woman of 30 and dressed like one of 20. Weber never commented. After all, everyone fights loneliness in their own way. Have you heard the news? She suddenly brightened. Fräulein Schönborn of Frankfurt is engaged to Count von Steinberg. I have the honor of knowing neither, Weber replied. Oh, doctor, you are completely detached from life. Amelia Schönborn is the heiress to a textile empire. Her father owned half the factories in Hesse. He died 3 years ago. Poor girl. An orphan. An enormous fortune. Enormous. And the Count? The Baroness lowered her voice. They say he is charming, but poor as a church mouse. His estate is mortgaged 3 times. Weber listened with half an ear. These stories repeated themselves season after season. Rich brides, impoverished aristocrats, calculated marriages. Resort society adored discussing other people's unions, because most of their own lives were long and empty. They are here in Baden-Baden, the Baroness continued, taking the waters before the wedding. She to strengthen her nerves, he to keep her company. Such devotion. They say he never leaves her side? Naturally, Weber thought, considering the size of the inheritance. But he said nothing. The visit lasted another half hour. Weber prescribed a harmless calming powder, mostly sugar with a drop of valerian, and took his leave. Outside, the frost bit again. The sky was heavy with gray clouds, promising new snowfall. 3 hours remained before his next visit. Weber decided to dine at the Europäischer Hof. Not the cheapest establishment, but warm, and they served a decent Rhine wine. The restaurant buzzed with voices. The winter season in Baden-Baden was quieter than the summer one, but wealthy guests still gathered here. Some for the healing waters, some for the casino, which never closed. Weber took a table by the window, ordered soup, roast, and a glass of wine. The habit of dining alone had long ceased to trouble him. 7 years. 7 years ago, Hilda had left him for Lieutenant von Brenner, a handsome young officer with mustaches and prospects. At that time, Weber still practiced in Heidelberg. He had a respectable reputation and believed marriage was forever. The divorce cost him almost everything: his position, his money, most of his friends. Respectable people did not divorce. Respectable people endured. He had turned out to be insufficiently respectable for Heidelberg. Baden-Baden accepted him with the indifference typical of resort towns. Here, no one cared about the past, only about the present, and only insofar as it concerned health and entertainment. The soup arrived, scalding hot. Weber ate slowly, observing the room. In the corner, Prince Galitzin played chess with some Austrian. At the bar, an English merchant loudly discussed the merits of local beer. And then Weber froze, spoon halfway to his mouth. At the entrance stood a young woman accompanied by a tall, dark-haired man. There was something about her, freshness, liveliness, that set her apart from the usual resort ladies. She laughed, and her laughter was real, not the strained giggle of polite society. A hat with blue ribbons, a coat trimmed with fur, a rosy flush on her cheeks from the cold. Fräulein Schönborn, Weber guessed. Too young to be a married woman, too elegant to be a simple townsgirl. So this must be the heiress. The man beside her, presumably Count von Steinberg, looked like someone accustomed to being admired. Dark hair slicked back, a neatly trimmed beard, an impeccably tailored coat. He leaned close, whispering something into her ear. She laughed again. In love, obviously, blindly, with the unquestioning faith that belongs to youth. Weber looked away. Other people's happiness was none of his concern. The rest of the meal passed without incident. The roast was too salty, the wine slightly sour. Trifles. Evening found Weber at the Trink Hall, the drinking gallery where guests strolled along the colonnade, sipping healing water from delicate porcelain cups. He came here out of habit. Not for the water, he knew its taste too well, but for observation. It is useful for a doctor to see patients outside the consulting room, where they do not pretend to be ill. The snowfall promised by the clouds never came. The air stood motionless, sharp, smelling of chimney smoke. Lanterns along the gallery glowed yellow, reflecting in frozen puddles. And there she was again, Fräulein Schönborn, this time without the Count. Beside her walked an older woman in a dark dress, a companion, or perhaps a maid. The heiress held a porcelain cup in her hands, took small sips, and grimaced. "This is absolutely impossible to drink," Weber heard her say. "Lot, how do people endure this every day?" "They say you get used to it, Fräulein," her companion replied. "I don't believe it, not for a second. I will never get used to it." She said it cheerfully, without complaint, turned her head slightly, and her gaze met Weber's. Gray eyes, open. Curious. "Excuse me," she spoke first. "May I ask, is it absolutely necessary to finish the entire cup, or is it acceptable to pour the rest into the fountain when no one is looking?" Weber could not help but smile. "From a medical standpoint," he said, "half a cup produces the same effect as a full one. If any effect exists at all." She raised an eyebrow. "You are a doctor?" "Dr. Karl Weber, at your service." "Emilia Schönborn. And this is Lot, my indispensable assistant in all misfortunes." The maid curtsied briefly. Weber noticed her gaze, attentive, assessing. A maid who thinks, a rarity. "And so, Dr. Weber," Emilia continued, "you do not believe in the miraculous power of these waters." "I believe in what can be tested." "A skeptic," she said, as if offering a compliment. "At last, at least one honest person in this city of pretenders. My fiancé insists that the waters work miracles. But he would probably assure me of anything, so long as I remain happy. Or so long as you do not change your mind," Weber thought. Aloud he said, "The waters are not harmful. In medicine, that alone already means a great deal." Emilia laughed with the same bright, ringing laugh Weber had heard in the restaurant. "You are a strange doctor. Most physicians tell stories of incredible healings. Most physicians are paid for such stories." She looked at him with new interest, as though she were seeing not merely a man in a gray coat, but something more. "We will be here until February," she said. "The wedding is scheduled for March 1st in Stuttgart. Until then, I am condemned to waters, walks, and endless conversations about devotion." That sounds exhausting. Terribly exhausting. But Maximilian, Count von Steinberg, insisted on the resort. "He wants me to be perfectly healthy for the wedding, though I am already perfectly healthy. It was simply my uncle's idea that I must strengthen my nerves." "Your uncle?" "Heinrich Schönborn, my guardian." Something in her voice trembled, just slightly. "He manages my affairs until the wedding." Weber nodded. The picture became clear. An orphan with a fortune, a guardian uncle, an impoverished fiancé. A classic arrangement, nothing unusual. "And yet, if you ever require a physician, Fräulein Schönborn," Weber said, not knowing why, "my practice is on Lichtental Alley. I am healthy, doctor, perfectly healthy." She smiled, drained the remaining water in one gulp, and theatrically grimaced. Horrible. Simply horrible. And with light steps, she departed, laughing, accompanied by faithful Lot. Weber watched her go. Healthy, he thought. Yes, young, cheerful, in love. In 3 months, she would become a countess. She would live in a mortgaged estate, bear children, grow old beside a handsome man who married her money. An ordinary story, nothing unusual. He repeated this to himself all the way home. Snow finally began to fall. Large, soft flakes covered the town in white silence. Candles glowed in house windows. Somewhere, piano music drifted through the air. Schubert, perhaps. His rooms greeted him with cold. The housekeeper had already gone. The stove barely smoldered. Weber added firewood, stirred the embers, and sat in the armchair by the window. Loneliness rolled over him in its familiar wave. Not sharp, dull, aching, like an old wound in damp weather. 45 years old, no wife, no children, no real home, only rented rooms, a medical bag, and an endless procession of other people's ailments, real and imagined. He remembered gray eyes, that laughter. At least one honest person. Nonsense, Weber told himself. Romantic nonsense. Outside, snow fell. Baden-Baden drifted to sleep beneath its white blanket, keeping its secrets until morning. And morning promised to be like yesterday. Or perhaps not. 2 weeks, not long. Long enough for new snow to fall and old snow to melt. Long enough for faces in the Kurhaus to change and fresh gossip to appear. But not long enough for a healthy young woman to turn into a pale shadow of herself. And yet that was exactly what happened to Emilia Schönborn. Dr. Weber did not learn this from Emilia herself. A note arrived on the morning of December 28th. Neat handwriting. Expensive paper with a watermark. Count Maximilian von Steinberg requested Dr. Weber to visit his fiancée at the Hotel Bad Schurhoff. Fräulein Schönborn was unwell. Nothing serious, presumably. But the Count would be grateful for a professional opinion. Weber read the note twice. Why him? At least 5 physicians practiced in Baden-Baden, some with far more illustrious reputations. Dr. Hoffmann, for instance, treated the Grand Duke of Baden himself. At least one honest person. Weber recalled Emilia's words. Perhaps that was the answer. The Bad Schurhoff greeted him with warm corridors and the scent of pine. A Christmas tree stood in the lobby, decorated for the approaching holiday. The porter led the doctor to the 2nd floor, to the apartments occupied by the Count's fiancée. In the sitting room waited the groom himself. By daylight, Count von Steinberg looked even more impressive than in the restaurant. Dark eyes, confident posture, a handshake firm, but not aggressive. A man accustomed to making an impression. Dr. Weber, thank you for coming so quickly. The Count spoke softly, with barely perceptible in his voice. Emilia, Fräulein Schönborn. She has not been herself these past days. Weakness, no appetite. I tried to convince her it is nothing. He spread his hands, a gesture of helplessness. Well practiced, almost sincere. When did the symptoms begin? Weber asked. 5 days ago, perhaps 6. At first, simple fatigue. I thought it was from walking, from the cold. Then she began refusing food. Says everything tastes bland. Weber nodded. A typical picture of nervous exhaustion, or the onset of some fever. I will examine the patient. Of course. Lot will accompany you. The maid appeared as if summoned by thought. The same older woman Weber had seen at the Trinkhall. She curtsied. Please follow me, Herr Doctor. The bedroom was furnished with the excessive luxury beloved by expensive hotels. Velvet curtains, walnut furniture, porcelain trinkets on the mantel. And in the midst of all this splendor sat Emilia Schönborn, half reclining in a chair by the window. Weber barely recognized her. 2 weeks ago, she had laughed at the taste of mineral water. Now before him sat a woman with a waxen face and extinguished eyes. The same gray eyes, but veiled as though behind thin mist. Dr. Weber, she said weakly. So you were needed after all. Fräulein Schönborn, I am glad to see you, though I would prefer different circumstances. She attempted a smile. It did not succeed. Lot, leave us. The maid hesitated, just for a moment. Then she left. Weber noticed. Servants rarely hesitate. The examination took 15 minutes. Pulse rapid but steady. Tongue slightly coated. Nothing critical. He asked about sleep, headaches, stomach troubles. Emilia answered slowly, without her former liveliness. At times I feel nauseated in the mornings, she said quietly. Lot thinks, well, you understand, but that is impossible. Weber understood. Impossible because she was not married. And such things did not happen to respectable brides. When did you last eat? Yesterday evening. A little broth. Maximilian brought it himself. He takes such good care of me. Her voice warmed when she spoke of her fiancé. Even in illness, love. Weber finished the examination and straightened. I see no signs of a serious illness, Fräulein. Most likely a nervous fever. Not uncommon before a wedding. Anxiety. A change of environment. Winter climate. You speak like everyone else, she interrupted. Nerves. Always nerves. But I have never suffered from nerves, doctor. I survived my father's death and did not fall ill. And now, a wedding with the man I love. And suddenly She did not finish. She turned toward the window. Beyond the glass, snow was falling, soft, unhurried, indifferent to human suffering. I will prescribe you a strengthening tonic, Weber said gently, and I strongly recommend that you eat more. Your body is weakened. Emilia nodded without turning around. Weber stepped into the sitting room. The Count awaited him, nervously tapping his fingers against the armrest. At the doctor's appearance, he sprang to his feet. Well, what is wrong with her? Nervous exhaustion. Nothing dangerous, but it requires rest and attentive care. Thank God. The Count exhaled with visible relief. I was so worried. She is to me. He hesitated, searching for words. She is everything to me, doctor. A beautiful phrase. The correct intonation. Weber had heard such words dozens of times. I will return in 3 days, Weber said. If her condition worsens sooner, send for me immediately. At that moment, the door from the corridor opened. A man in his 50s entered the room, large, with heavy sideburns. Expensively dressed, but without elegance. His face carried a mixture of concern and irritation. Maximilian, what does the doctor say? He did not even glance at Weber, as though the doctor did not exist. Uncle Heinrich, the Count bowed slightly. Allow me to introduce Dr. Weber. Doctor, this is Herr Heinrich Schönborn, my fiancée's guardian. Schönborn finally deigned to notice the physician. An assessing gaze, compressed lips. A man accustomed to measuring people by their usefulness. How long have you been practicing? 22 years. Where? Heidelberg. The last 7 years here. Schönborn gave a short grunt. Something in that sound told Weber the guardian had already made inquiries. A divorced doctor without connections. Not suitable company for a wealthy heiress, but sufficient as a physician. And what precisely is wrong with my niece? Nervous exhaustion, Weber repeated for the 3rd time that morning. I recommend rest. Rest? Schönborn threw up his hands. What rest? In 2 months there is a wedding. So many preparations. Emilia cannot lie in bed while gowns must be ordered, menus discussed, invitations sent. Uncle, the Count intervened softly, Emilia's health is more important than any preparations. I am not saying it is not important, but everything has its limits. Schönborn turned to Weber. How long will she need? A week. 2. It depends on many factors. Doctor, I am a man of business. I need precise time frames. Weber felt irritation rising. He suppressed it. 2 to 3 weeks, if all goes well. Possibly longer. 3 weeks? Shanborn clutched his head. That is unthinkable. The wedding cannot be postponed. Contracts are signed. Halls are reserved. Contracts, Weber noted silently. Not the suffering of his niece. Contracts. No one is speaking of postponement, uncle, the Count said calmly. Amelia will recover. She is strong. The guardian snorted, but did not argue further. Apparently, the Count knew how to handle him. Weber took his leave and stepped into the corridor. Lot caught up with him. Herr Doctor. She lowered her voice almost to a whisper. May I speak with you? He stopped. I am listening. Lot glanced around. The corridor was empty. She spoke quickly, nervously. I have served Fräulein Amelia for 8 years, since she was a child. I know her better than anyone, and I tell you, this is not nerves. Why are you so certain? Because my mistress has nerves of steel. She is not the type to faint from worry. When her father died, she cried for 2 days. Then she gathered herself and took charge. At 21, Herr Doctor, she faltered. And now she is fading, like a candle in a draught. Her eyes glistened. And it began? It began after we arrived here. You believe it is the climate? I do not know what to believe, she whispered, but I see something is wrong. Something very wrong. Weber studied her carefully. A maid was not a physician, but 8 years beside, one person often granted an understanding no textbook could offer. Have you noticed anything specific? Anything unusual? Lot frowned. The Count is very attentive to my mistress. Every evening he brings her supper himself. Says he does not trust the hotel servants. And after these suppers, she grows worse. She sleeps badly at night, moans, turns restlessly. In the morning, she rises exhausted. That can be a symptom of illness. Perhaps, Lot bit her lip. But when the Count traveled to Karui for 2 days on business, Fräulein felt better. I told myself it was coincidence. She did not truly believe it. It was written in every line of her face. I will return in 3 days, Weber said. If you notice anything alarming, you know where to find me. Lot nodded and disappeared into the apartments. Weber descended into the lobby, lost in thought. His practical mind rejected the maid's suspicions as nonsense. Nervous fever explained everything. Weakness, loss of appetite, insomnia, a young woman before her wedding. A classic case. And yet, when the Count was absent, she improved. Coincidence? Of course, coincidence. Outside, the snow had thickened. The streets of Baden-Baden became white tunnels between houses. Passers-by hurried along, hiding from the wind behind raised collars. Weber headed toward the Kurhaus. One could warm up there and hear news. A doctor benefited from knowing how resort society lived. Sometimes gossip revealed more about patients than patients themselves. The Kurhaus buzzed with voices. Regulars gathered at card tables. In the music salon, someone tortured a piano. Weber settled into an armchair by the fireplace with a newspaper and a cup of hot chocolate. After 15 minutes, Counselor Brandt sat beside him, a retired official, one of those tireless gossipers who form the backbone of any resort. Dr. Weber, I hear you visited Fräulein Schönborn. Weber was not surprised. In Baden-Baden, news traveled faster than telegrams. A routine visit. Ah yes, poor girl. They say she is quite ill. Nothing serious. Brandt leaned closer. Do you know what they are saying at the casino? Count von Steinberg lost $8,000 the other night, in a single evening. Weber lowered his newspaper. 8,000? And not for the first time. My acquaintance, Banker Leventhal, says the Count's estate is mortgaged for the 3rd time. A year ago, he stood on the brink of ruin. And now, Brandt narrowed his eyes. Now he is engaged to the richest heiress in Hesse. A fortunate coincidence, wouldn't you say? Weber remained silent. Coincidence? Again. I am not asserting anything, Brandt continued. But people say this marriage is pure calculation. That the Count courted Emilia for one purpose only, to repair his finances. People say many things. True, very true. Brandt leaned back. But here is what puzzles me. Her guardian, this Schönborn, he is no fool. Why did he approve such a match? Emilia could have had dozens of better suitors. Why indeed? Weber returned home by evening. His rooms greeted him with silence and the faint scent of cold coffee. The housekeeper had left breakfast on the table, untouched. He sat at his writing desk, lit the lamp, and took out his notebook. A habit formed over many years, to record observations while they were fresh. December 28th, Emilia Schönborn, age 24. Symptoms: weakness, loss of appetite, nausea, insomnia. Diagnosis: nervous fever. Questionable. He paused over the final words. Questionable. What exactly was in question? Two facts troubled him. First, Lott's words about Emilia improving during the Count's absence. Second, the groom's debts, known to the entire Kurhaus. But none of this proved anything. Yet, nervous fever could retreat and return on its own. And debts? Many aristocrats married for money. That alone did not make them villains. You are searching for a mystery where none exists, Weber told himself. And yet, he remembered Emilia's face, the waxen pallor, the extinguished eyes. 2 weeks ago, she had laughed at the taste of mineral water. Now she could barely speak. What happened during these 2 weeks? Outside the window, snow continued to fall, quiet, relentless. By morning, the city would drown beneath white silence, and all traces would vanish. Weber closed his notebook. In 3 days, he would see Emilia again. Perhaps by then she would be better, and all his doubts would prove foolish. Or perhaps they would not. The new year arrived in Baden-Baden with frost and fireworks. Resort society welcomed 1853 in the Kurhaus with champagne, dancing, and empty wishes of happiness. Dr. Weber spent midnight alone in his rooms, watching multicolored flashes bloom above the snowy rooftops. Once, he had loved holidays. Now they seemed like stage scenery, bright on the outside, hollow within. On January 3rd, he went again to Badischerhof. Emilia Schönborn's condition had not improved. On the contrary, new symptoms had appeared. A tingling, she said, slowly opening and closing her fingers, as if hundreds of tiny needles, especially in the mornings. And the nausea. It does not pass, doctor. Weber examined her hands. The skin was pale, slightly damp. No rash, no visible lesions. Her pulse was weak, but steady. Have you taken the tonic I prescribed? Every day. Lott makes sure I do not forget. And no effect? Emilia shook her head. Her movements had grown sluggish, as though each gesture required effort. And my eyes, she added quietly. Sometimes everything becomes blurred, as if I'm looking through fogged glass. When does this happen? In the evenings? After supper. Usually after supper. Weber noted this silently. Again, supper. Tell me about your daily routine. Emilia managed a faint smile. What routine? I barely leave these rooms. In the morning, Lott brings breakfast tea and toast. That is all I can manage. During the day, I read, or try to read. Maximilian visits around noon. In the evening, we sometimes go down to the restaurant, if I have strength. If not, he brings supper here. And yesterday, did you go downstairs? Yes, Maximilian insisted. Said I needed a change of air. How did you feel afterward? She hesitated. Bad. Worse than usual. The nausea increased. And the tingling. She looked again at her hands. Doctor, what is happening to me? This is not nerves. I know what nerves feel like. This is something else. Weber did not answer immediately. Tingling in the limbs, nausea, visual disturbances, symptoms worsening after meals. He had seen such a picture long ago. In Heidelberg. Fräulein Schönborn, he said slowly. You eat and drink only what is brought to you. She blinked in surprise. Of course, I hardly get up. And the Count. He is usually present during your meals? Not always, but often. He is so attentive. Her voice warmed. Yesterday, he even brought me a gift from Strasbourg. He went there on business and brought wonderful French face powder. Said it would restore my color. Weber froze. Face powder? Yes, for the face. I have grown so pale. She pointed toward the vanity table by the window. There, in the porcelain jar. Would you like to see it? He approached. An elegant jar with a blue pattern. Inside, a fine white powder. Weber leaned closer. The smell was faint, almost imperceptible. Have you used it? Once, yesterday evening, before we went to the restaurant. She blushed slightly. I wanted to look, at least a little better, for Maximilian. For Maximilian. Weber placed the jar back. His hands were perfectly steady. Inside, something shifted. I will prescribe you a different medicine, he said, and I strongly recommend complete rest. No trips to the restaurant, no excitement. Let Lotte prepare your food herself. But Maximilian will not like that. He tries so hard. Tell him it is my medical order, Emilia nodded. Something flickered in her eyes. Gratitude? Relief? Or simple exhaustion? Weber stepped into the sitting room. The Count was not there. Gone on business, Lotte said. All the better. Lotte, Weber lowered his voice. Can you cook? Of course, Herr Doctor. From today on, you prepare all of Fräulein's meals. From breakfast to supper. No food from the hotel kitchen. No trays from the Count. Only what you make with your own hands. Lotte looked at him for a long moment. You suspect something? It was not a question. I am a doctor, Weber replied. I do not suspect. I observe. Just do as I said. And one more thing. The face powder the Count gave her. Make sure Fräulein does not use it. Tell her I have forbidden all cosmetics until recovery. Is this important? Yes. Lotte nodded. She looked frightened, but asked no further questions. A wise woman. Weber was glad she stood on her mistress's side. Outside, a biting wind greeted him. The snow had stopped, but the sky hung low and gray. Promising another storm. Weber walked along Sophienstrasse, deep in thought. Heidelberg. Muller's textile factory on the outskirts of the city. 3 female workers. The same symptoms: nausea, tingling, weakness, disturbed vision. One died before he understood. 2 were saved when it was discovered that the dye contained arsenic. Arsenic. Weber stopped in the middle of the street. A lady under an umbrella passed him, glancing strangely. He did not notice. Arsenic. A poison without taste, without smell. The perfect weapon for those who wish to kill slowly. Tiny doses, day after day. The victim fades like a candle. Doctors blame nerves, consumption, a weak heart. No one asks questions. This is madness, Weber told himself. The Count is her fiancé. In 2 months, they will be married. Why poison his own bride? The estate mortgaged 3 times. $8,000 lost in one night. Contracts signed. Contracts. What exactly lay within those contracts? Marriage settlements often granted inheritance. If the wife died? No. Too monstrous. Too calculated. And yet, Weber turned and walked back toward his rooms. He needed to think. He needed to remember everything he knew about arsenic. At home, he pulled old medical books from the cupboard, volumes he had carried since Heidelberg. He found the marked page, Arsenicum, white arsenic. Symptoms of chronic poisoning, gastric disturbances, nausea, vomiting, tingling and numbness of the extremities, visual impairment up to blindness, hair loss, changes in skin pigmentation. He read and reread. Everything fit, almost everything. But one question remained. How, if Emilia improved in the Count's absence, the poison came through him? But how exactly? Food? Drink? The powder? Weber sprang to his feet. Face powder. White lead had been used for centuries. Its danger was well known, but other formulas existed, including arsenic-based compounds. Paris green, Schweinfurt green, added to paints, wallpaper, cosmetics. The Count brought powder from Strasbourg, a gift, to restore her color. Emilia used it once and felt worse. Coincidence? Weber no longer believed in coincidence. By evening, the picture began to form. Ugly, terrifying, logical. Count von Steinberg. A ruined aristocrat, drowning in debt. Marriage to Emilia Schönborn would solve everything. But what if he did not want a wife? What if he wanted only her fortune? According to most marriage contracts, the husband inherits. If Emilia dies after the wedding, the Count receives everything. Killing a healthy young woman is difficult and risky. But killing a woman who is already ill, who fades slowly before everyone's eyes, while doctors shrug, nervous fever, consumption, weak heart. Weber sat in the dim light of his lamp. Outside, the wind whispered through the streets. And somewhere, very close, a careful, patient evil was at work. No one would suspect poison. A perfect plan if Weber was right. And if he was wrong? If all of this was only a product of his imagination, born from boredom and loneliness. A divorced doctor searching for drama where none existed. He remembered Hilda. 7 years ago she had told him, "You always see the worst in people, Carl. It's your professional deformation." Perhaps she had been right. Perhaps the Count truly loved Emilia. Perhaps the powder was just powder. But tingling in the limbs, nausea, disturbed vision. These were not inventions. On January 5th, Weber returned to Badischer Hof. This time, the Count himself greeted him. "Dr. von Steinberg," he said warmly, pressing Weber's hand with practiced sincerity. "I hear you gave new instructions. Lot cooks now and no outings." "Your fiancé requires absolute rest," Weber replied, watching the Count's face closely. Of course. Emilia's health comes first. And yet, it seems to me she is a little better today. She even smiled at breakfast. A little better because Lot cooks. Because the powder remains untouched. I would like to examine her. Certainly, she is in the bedroom. Emilia truly looked slightly improved, not healthy, but no longer as exhausted as 3 days earlier. The tingling in her fingers had lessened. The nausea had eased. "I even ate an egg this morning," she said, with a faint shadow of her former smile. An entire egg. Imagine that. That is a good sign. Perhaps you are right, doctor. Perhaps it really is nerves, and I only need rest. Weber nodded without answering. His eyes drifted to the vanity table. The porcelain jar stood exactly where he had left it. "You have not used cosmetics?" "No." "As you ordered." She frowned slightly. Although Maximilian was disappointed. He tried so hard to find the finest powder in Strasbourg. "The Count often gives you gifts?" "Oh yes, he is very generous." Her voice softened. "Gloves, perfume, jewelry. He says I deserve the best. And you use all these gifts?" She looked at him, surprised. "Of course. Why do you ask?" Simple curiosity. He could not tell her the truth. Not now. Without proof. Accusing the Count would destroy Weber's reputation and shatter the heart of a woman who trusted her fiancé completely. He needed evidence. "Rest, Fräulein Schönborn," Weber said, rising. "Continue to follow my instructions. No cosmetics, only food prepared by Lot." "You are a strange doctor, Dr. Weber," Emilia said softly, "but I trust you." "I do not know why." He left the bedroom. In the sitting room, the Count was speaking with another man near the window. Tall, expensively dressed. Schönborn, the uncle. "I tell you, the wedding cannot be postponed," Schönborn snapped. "The invitations are sent. The church is reserved." "What will people think if we—" He noticed Weber. "Doctor," a cold nod. "How is my niece?" "There is slight improvement." "Slight?" Schönborn threw up his hands. "And the wedding is in 7 weeks. Will she be able to stand at the altar?" Weber looked at him. At the Count, smiling with impeccable courtesy. At the uncle, thinking of invitations and contracts. "If everything proceeds well," Weber said slowly, "Fräulein Schönborn will recover, but it requires time. And certain precautions." "What precautions?" the Count asked sharply. "Medical ones." Weber said nothing more, but something in his tone, or in his eyes, made the Count frown for a fleeting moment. Then the flawless mask returned. "We will do everything you say, Doctor," von Steinberg replied. "Emilia's health is our greatest concern." "Our, not mine." Weber bowed and left. Outside, he stopped and looked up at the lit windows of the hotel. Somewhere up there, a young woman was slowly dying. And beside her stood a man who might be killing her. Evidence, Weber thought. I need evidence, and he knew where to find it. The powder on the vanity table was waiting. There are moments when a person understands. There is no turning back. For Dr. Karl Weber, that moment came on the morning of January 10th, 1853. He stood before Emilia Schönborn's vanity table, his heart pounding, a porcelain jar hidden in his coat pocket. But first, the visit began as usual. Lot met him in the corridor, pale, dark circles under her eyes. "She is worse, Herr Doctor," she whispered. "Much worse." "What happened?" "Her sight. She can barely see by candlelight. Last night, she tried to read a letter and could not make out a single word." Weber felt a cold certainty settle inside him. The vision was failing exactly as the textbooks described. The bedroom was dim, curtains drawn, no candles lit. Emilia sat in a chair by the window, turned toward the weak winter light as if trying to catch its last fragments. "Dr. Weber," she said without turning, "I recognized you by your steps. Funny, isn't it? Before, I would have simply looked." Her voice was calm, too calm, the calm of resignation, or despair disguised as resignation. "Tell me about your sight," Weber said gently. "When did this begin?" "The day before yesterday. At first, just a haze at the edges. Then," she finally turned toward him. The same gray eyes, but now they did not quite focus. "I realized I could not read the title of a book. Lot says the letters are large." Weber lit a candle and held it close, the pupils constricted. The reflex remained. He raised 3 fingers. "How many?" She hesitated. 2 or 3? "They merged, Doctor. Everything pointed to arsenic." "Have you followed my instructions?" "Only food from Lot, no cosmetics." "Yes, everything as you said." She gave a weak smile. "And yet I am worse." Weber frowned. If she had not used the powder, if Lot cooked everything, then how? "Think carefully," he said. 2 evenings ago." "What did you have?" "Nothing special. Maximilian brought me hot chocolate. He knows I love chocolate. He sat beside me while I drank, talked about the wedding plans. Hot chocolate, brought by the fiancé. Was it sweet?" She blinked. "Very. He added extra sugar." I even laughed and said he was spoiling me. Sugar, or something that looked like sugar. A white powder, dissolving without trace. Cold fury rose inside Weber. The Count had not stopped. When the powder was forbidden, he found another way. Chocolate, sugar, care, the perfect disguise. Fräulein Schönborn, Weber said calmly, from this moment on, you will take nothing, no food, no drink, except what Lot prepares. Nothing from the Count, especially nothing from the Count. She stared at him. What are you saying? I am a doctor. I do not accuse. I treat. And my treatment requires complete isolation from external influences. She was silent for a long time. Then softly, you suspect something. I hear it in your voice. I hear it. I suspect, Weber said, that your illness has an external cause, and I intend to find it. He left Emilia in Lot's care and stepped into the sitting room. As if by mockery, the Count sat there, elegant, smiling, a newspaper in his hands. Dr. Weber, how is our patient? Her vision has worsened, Weber replied, watching the Count's face closely. The Count frowned, or performed a frown. With him, it was always impossible to tell. My God? Poor Emilia. What can be done? I am working on it, Weber replied. Working? The Count folded his newspaper. You are a physician, doctor. You are supposed to cure, not work. Or am I misunderstanding something? A new note appeared in his voice. Not hostility. Caution. The tone of a predator who senses danger. Some illnesses require investigation, Weber said calmly. Their causes are not always obvious. Investigation? The Count repeated softly. An interesting choice of word for a doctor. They looked at each other. Two men who knew something. And who knew that the other also knew something. The air between them grew dense. I will return tomorrow, Weber said. In the meantime, I recommend not disturbing your fiancé. Complete rest. Of course, the Count smiled again. Emilia's health comes first. Weber inclined his head and moved toward the door. At the threshold, as if remembering something, he turned back. By the way, I would like to examine her cosmetics. Sometimes low-quality products cause skin irritation that affects overall well-being. Cosmetics? A flicker of tension crossed the Count's face. But she does not use any. You yourself forbade it. Nevertheless, for completeness, the Count hesitated, only for a second. But Weber noticed. Very well. Lot will escort you. Inside the bedroom, Weber acted quickly. While Lot distracted Emilia with quiet conversation, he approached the vanity. The porcelain jar of powder stood untouched, lightly dusted. With a careful movement, he slipped a small pinch of the white substance into a folded paper packet and hid it inside his coat. All in order, Weber announced aloud. The cosmetics are not the cause. Continue resting, Fräulein. Outside, a strange lightness washed over him. Proof lay warm in his pocket. Now he needed someone capable of analysis. Friedrich Muller had owned a pharmacy on Kaiser Wilhelm Street for more than 30 years. Weber had known him since Heidelberg, back when they were young and hopeful. Muller became a pharmacist. Weber became a doctor. Their friendship remained. The pharmacy greeted him with the scent of herbs and chemicals. Behind the counter stood Muller himself, gray-haired, stooped, thick spectacles. Carl, Muller smiled broadly. What brings you here? A prescription or nostalgia? I need your help, Friedrich, professionally. The smile faded. That sounds serious. It is. They went into the small back laboratory, crowded with flasks, retorts, and unfamiliar instruments. Weber placed the paper packet on the table. What is it? Face powder. French. From Strasbourg. I need to know what is in it. Muller carefully opened it, sniffed. Powder like any other. Lead, most likely, or zinc. Why? I suspect arsenic. Muller slowly removed his glasses. Arsenic? He spoke the word as if it burned. Carl, do you realize what you're saying? I do. That is why I came to you. Silence. Then Muller put his glasses back on and studied Weber. Who is the woman? Amelia Schönborn, a wealthy heiress from Frankfurt. Engaged Count von Steinberg. Muller whistled softly. Von Steinberg? The handsome gambler who loses fortunes at the casino? The same. And you think he... I think nothing. I want facts. Another pause. Then Muller nodded. I will use the Marsh test, developed 20 years ago specifically to detect arsenic. Precise, reliable. If there are even traces, I will find them. How long? A day, perhaps 2. Friedrich, no one must know. Muller frowned. For whom do you take me? I have kept other people's secrets for 30 years. Who treats what disease? Who buys what remedies? Your secret is safe. He placed a hand on Weber's shoulder. If you are right, this is murder. Slow, deliberate, and you are the only one who noticed. Murder. The word hung in the air like a sentence. Come back the day after tomorrow, Muller said. I will have the results. Weber left the pharmacy and wandered through the streets. Snow crunched underfoot. Lanterns cast long yellow shadows. Baden-Baden lived its usual life. Carriages, voices, music drifting from windows. No one knew, no one suspected. Somewhere in a hotel room, a young woman was slowly losing her sight. And beside her sat the man who might be killing her. At home, Weber opened his notebook. He reread everything. Dates, symptoms, observations. Now the pattern was clear. Too clear to be coincidence. The first symptoms appeared 1 week after arriving in Baden-Baden, exactly when the Count began bringing her dinner himself. Improvement when Lot took control of the food. Worsening after hot chocolate from the fiancé. And the powder from Strasbourg, used once, followed by a sharp decline. Weber closed the notebook. He was 45 years old. He had seen human cruelty in many forms. But this, a man who killed with smiles, with gifts, with tenderness, each gesture poison, each word lie. Outside, the first true blizzard of the year began. Snowflakes spun in the lantern, light like pale moths. Weber thought of Amelia's gray eyes, of the laughter that was fading, of the words she had spoken. I trust you. I don't know why. She trusted him. He was the only one who could save her. Weber lay down, fully dressed. Sleep did not come. He waited for morning. And for proof, her condition stabilized. Not better, not worse. Balanced on a thin, fragile edge. Lot guarded her mistress like a sentry, rarely allowing the Count near. He is angry, the maid whispered to Weber in the corridor. He says I am overstepping my authority. He threatens to complain to Herr Schönborn. Let him complain. You are following the doctor's orders. But for how long, Herr Doctor? Lot looked at him with tired eyes. If what you suspect is true, he will find another way. I am working on it. Working? She gave a bitter smile. And meanwhile, my mistress is going blind. Weber had no answer. She was right. Time was not on their side. That evening, Weber encountered the Count in the hotel foyer. By chance or by design? Dr. Weber. Von Steinberg smiled, but his eyes remained cold. You visit so often that soon you will become part of the furnishings. My patient requires observation. Oh, yes. Observation, the Count repeated, emphasizing the word. You are very attentive. So attentive that I begin to suspect you are observing more than just the patient. I do not understand what you mean. The Count leaned closer, lowering his voice. I am an observant man, Doctor. I notice how you look at me. At Amelia, at her rooms, as if you are searching for something. Weber said nothing. His heart beat faster. His face stayed calm. "Allow me to offer some friendly advice," the Count continued. "A resort physician depends on reputation. And reputation," he spread his hands lightly, "can be destroyed by a single careless word, especially when the person in question is divorced. That is a threat." "What?" "No, doctor. A friendly warning." The Count smiled again. "Treat Emilia. That is your duty. But do not play detective. Such games tend to end badly." He nodded and walked away. An open threat, clear, undeniable. The Count was beginning to understand. Outside, the blizzard had eased, but the cold was merciless. Weber walked home, thinking only of time. It was running out. The Count was alert now. Soon he would accelerate his plan or remove the obstacle. The day after tomorrow, Muller's results, his only chance. January 13th dawned clear and bitterly cold. The sky above Baden-Baden shone in a hard winter blue. Snow glittered on rooftops. Smoke rose straight from chimneys. A perfect day for strolling, if Weber had been capable of strolling. He walked toward Muller's pharmacy, each step heavy with fear. Strange to fear the truth you have been searching for. But Weber knew after today, nothing would ever be the same. If arsenic was confirmed, he would face a choice: remain silent and watch a young woman die, or speak and challenge a man who could destroy him with a word. The bell above the pharmacy door rang. Muller stood behind the counter. Seeing Weber, he silently gestured toward the back room. The laboratory looked different. A strange apparatus dominated the table. Glass tubes, a burner, a zinc plate. Beside them, a sheet of paper covered in notes. "Sit," Muller said. Weber sat. The pharmacist removed his glasses, wiped them slowly, put them back on. A gesture Weber knew well. "You are right," Muller pointed to the device. "The Marsh test. I performed it twice. Same result both times." He handed Weber a small mirror. On its silver surface darkened a black, shimmering stain. Arsenicum. Arsenic. High concentration. Enough to kill after months of regular exposure. Weber stared at the stain. There it was. Proof. Solid. Irrefutable. "You are certain, Friedrich?" "I have practiced chemistry for 30 years. There is no doubt." Weber placed the mirror on the table. His hands did not shake. He forced them not to. "So, he truly is poisoning her." Muller nodded. "What will you do?" "I don't know." Weber went to the window. Outside, ordinary life. Carriages, shoppers, vendors with baskets. A world indifferent to poisoned fiancés. Go to the police? With what? A stolen jar of powder from a private room? But you have proof. Proof of poison in powder. Not proof that the Count placed it there. Not proof he knew. He will say he bought it in Strasbourg, that he had no idea. And they will believe him. He is a Count. I am a divorced resort doctor. Silence. And the powder is only part of it, Weber continued. He poisoned her through food as well. Chocolate, sugar. How do I prove that? Muller had no answer. Then what? Watch her die? Weber turned sharply. No, I will find a way. I must. He took the mirror, a piece of evidence that meant nothing, and everything. On the way back to the hotel, Weber thought of Emilia. How could he tell her that the man she loved was slowly killing her? That every kiss was a lie, every gift a weapon? He could not. Not now. Such knowledge might finish what the poison had started. But silence was also deadly. The Count would continue. He would find another method, sooner or later. In the foyer, Lot hurried toward him. She looked worse than 3 days ago. Herr Doctor, thank God, I must speak with you. She pulled him into a shadowed niche beneath the stairs. The Count was alone with my mistress this morning. I left only for a minute to fetch water. When I returned, he was holding her hand and whispering. On the bedside table stood a glass of milk. I asked where it came from. Fräulein said Maximilian brought it. Did she drink it? I don't know. I took the glass away, said the milk was not fresh. The way he looked at me, Lot shuddered. I was afraid. I cannot guard her every second. The Count is clever, and Herr Schönborn is on his side. Yesterday, he told me that if I interfere with my mistress's happiness, I will be dismissed without references. 8 years I have served her, Herr Doctor. 8 years. Tears filled her eyes. Weber placed a hand on her shoulder. Listen carefully. You must continue exactly as you have been. No food or drink from the Count. No cosmetics. If they try to dismiss you, I will intervene. But how? You are not family. I am her doctor, and I know the truth. Lot studied him. You found something? Yes. In the powder? Yes. There is poison. Arsenic. Lot did not cry. She simply nodded. I knew it. No one else gave her cosmetics. Only him. He said he cared for her. Bitter silence. I need to speak with Fräulein Schönborn, Weber said. Can you arrange privacy? I will try. The Count follows her like a shadow. But he is not here now. He went to the casino. Lot grimaced. Every day now. Losing fortunes. Weber remembered Brandt's words. $8,000 in one night. If the Count kept gambling, he was certain of future money. Emilia's money. Or money gained through her death. Amelia sat in the same chair by the window. The curtains were drawn back. She was trying to catch the last fragments of daylight. Dr. Weber, she said without turning. I hear your footsteps. They are heavy today. Has something happened? He stepped closer, looked at her pale face, at eyes that no longer searched for him, but stared past him into emptiness. A month ago, she laughed at mineral water. Now she could barely make out his silhouette. How is your sight? Worse. She said it calmly, almost without emotion. This morning I could not see my face in the mirror, only a blur, a white blur. Weber sat beside her. Fräulein Schönborn, Emilia. He had never called her by her name before. I must ask you some questions. I need you to be completely honest with me. She turned her head toward him. She could not see his face, but she seemed to feel the gravity of the moment. Ask. The face powder the Count gave you. Did he ever give you any other cosmetics? Any creams? Lotions? Skin treatments? No, only the powder. She frowned. Why do you ask? And perfumes? Jewelry? Perfume, yes, from Paris. I hardly used it. The scent was too strong. It gave me headaches. She fell silent. Doctor, you are hiding something from me. I can hear it in your voice. Please, tell me the truth. Weber looked at her, at a woman who had trusted the wrong person and was now paying with her sight, her health, perhaps her life. She deserved the truth, but the truth could kill her. I am conducting an investigation, he said at last, into the cause of your illness, and I am beginning to understand that it is not nervous fever. Then what is it? I cannot yet say with certainty, but I will find the answer. I promise you. Amelia was silent for a long time. Then she reached out, found his hand, and squeezed it. You are the only person who is honest with me, she said quietly. Maximilian says everything will be fine. My uncle says I must be strong for the wedding. But you say, I don't know. And those are the most honest words I have heard in a month. Her hand was cold, too cold for a living body. I will cure you, Weber said, no matter what it costs. Do you believe that? Yes. And it was the truth, because if he did not believe it, nothing had meaning. He left the hotel at dusk. January pressed down on the city with darkness and cold. Lamplighters lit the street lanterns, and yellow circles of light tore fragments of snowy streets from the blackness. Weber walked home, thinking of allies. Muller, 1. Lot, 2. No one else. Against him stood a count with title and charm, an uncle with money and influence, an entire world more willing to believe an aristocrat than an unknown physician. The police? Useless, without witnesses, without direct proof. They would laugh. Doctor, you have read too many novels. Telling Amelia? Too dangerous. She loved the Count. She might not believe him. Or worse, believe him and break. The uncle? Herr Schönborn's haste. His indifference to her health. His threats to Lot. A disturbing picture. What if the uncle knew? The thought was monstrous, but it would not leave him. Schönborn controlled Amelia's fortune until marriage. After the wedding, the money would pass to her husband. If she died childless, the husband would inherit everything. But what interest did the uncle have? Weber stopped in the middle of the street. A passerby walked around him, casting an annoyed glance. Unless the uncle received a share, payment for assistance. It explained everything. Why he approved a marriage to a ruined aristocrat. Why he rushed the wedding. Why he intimidated the maid. But it was still only a hypothesis. Another theory without proof. At home, Weber lit his lamp and opened his notebook. Names, dates, symptoms, observations. On a separate sheet he wrote, evidence face powder contains arsenic, Marsh test. Symptoms correspond to chronic arsenic poisoning. Condition worsens after contact with the Count. Condition improves in his absence. Unproven, the Count knew the powder contained arsenic. The Count added poison to food and drink. Uncle Schönborn is an accomplice. Necessary find witnesses. Obtain confession. Protect Amelia until trial. He stared at the list. The task was almost impossible. Almost, because surrender was not an option. Outside, winter howled. Cold, indifferent, merciless. Somewhere in a warm hotel room, a young woman was slowly dying. Beside her sat a man pretending to love her. Weber looked at the small mirror with the black stain. Proof of a crime no one wished to see. I will find a way, he thought. I must. January 16th began with a thaw. Rare for midwinter. Snow darkened on rooftops. Water dripped from eaves. Baden-Baden seemed to breathe after weeks of frost. Weber noticed none of it. He walked toward the Baden-Schurhof with one thought. Today everything will be decided. Night had brought no sleep. Only calculations. Options were few. Police, useless. Amelia, dangerous. Waiting, impossible. Only one path remained. Force the enemy to reveal himself. In the foyer, he encountered the Count. Von Steinberg was leaving the restaurant, pulling on his gloves. He stopped when he saw Weber. A flicker of irritation crossed his face. Doctor, again you. Again, Weber replied calmly. I need to speak with you privately. About what? About your fiancée's health and the cause of her illness. Something changed in the Count's eyes. Nothing obvious. Only the pupils narrowing. Like a cat sensing danger. Not here, he said, glancing around. The library upstairs. It should be empty. The library was small. Shelves along the walls. 2 armchairs by an unlit fireplace. Cold. The Count remained standing near the door, arms crossed. Weber stood by the window. I conducted an analysis, Weber said slowly. A chemical analysis of the face powder you gave Fräulein Schönborn. The Count's face did not move. And arsenic. High concentration. Enough to kill a person over several months. Silence. A crow cawed outside. A door slammed somewhere below. Interesting, the Count said at last. And what you do with this discovery depends on you? On me? The Count smiled faintly. Doctor, you do not understand your position. You are nobody. A divorced physician with no influence. I am Count von Steinberg. My family has served the Baden Dukes for 300 years. Weber took a step closer. Your family left you a mortgaged estate and gambling debts. $8,000 in one night. And that is not your limit, is it? For the first time, something flickered in the Count's eyes. Anger, fear. You collect gossip like a market woman. I collect facts. And the facts say you need Amelia Shanburn's money, but not Amelia herself. So you are killing her slowly, carefully, so that no one suspects. Absurd, the Count said evenly. I love Amelia. You love her inheritance. They stood facing one another, two men who knew the truth. The masks had not fully fallen, but cracks had already begun to show. Let us assume, the Count said quietly, almost in a whisper, let us assume you are right. What can you prove? You have a jar of powder containing arsenic, and I purchased it in Strasbourg from a shop on Rue de la Messagerie. They sell dozens of such jars. How was I to know it contained poison? You say I knew? Prove it. Weber said nothing. The Count was correct. There was no direct proof. You see? Von Steinberg relaxed. Confidence returned to his voice. You can prove nothing. But I, on the other hand, can prove many things. For example, I can tell all of Baden-Baden that a certain Dr. Weber is pursuing my fiancée with improper intentions, that he steals personal items from her room, that he is trying to sabotage our engagement out of jealousy. Who will they believe? The Count laughed softly. A divorced middle-aged man circling a young, wealthy beauty. A doctor who spends an unusual amount of time in her bedroom. A man without family, without position. Tell me, doctor, whom will they believe? Cold crept beneath Weber's skin. Not from the chill of the room, from understanding. The Count was prepared. He had thought of everything. Here is my advice, von Steinberg said, stepping closer. Weber caught the heavy, sweet scent of his cologne. Leave Baden-Baden today. Forget Emilia. Forget the powder. Forget everything. And perhaps I will forget you. If not, the Count smiled. And that smile made Weber uneasy. Then I will destroy you. Not physically, of course. I am not a barbarian. But when I am finished, you will not be able to treat even dogs in this city. Think carefully. He turned and left, closing the door gently behind him. An hour later, Weber sat in the office of Heinrich Schönborn. Amelia's uncle occupied apartments even more luxurious than hers. Heavy furniture, thick carpets, rich draperies. Everything proclaimed wealth and the desire to display it. Schönborn received Weber unwillingly. He shuffled papers and looked at the doctor with poorly hidden irritation. What do you want, doctor? It concerns your niece. Schönborn sighed. Again, I thought we had settled this. Nervous fever. Rest. Time. It is not nervous fever. The Guardian looked up. Pardon? Fräulein Schönborn has been systematically poisoned for several weeks. The poison is arsenic. The source is cosmetics given to her by her fiancé. Weber spoke evenly, clinically. He watched Schönborn's face. The Guardian slowly set his papers aside. Are you out of your mind? I conducted a chemical analysis. The Marsh test, reliable, no doubt. And you are accusing Count von Steinberg of... Schönborn faltered. Attempted murder. Silence. Schönborn stared at Weber. There was something in his eyes. Not surprise. Not fear. Something else. Dr. Weber, Schönborn said at last, I understand you wish the best for my niece. But what you are suggesting is monstrous. The Count is a respectable man of noble birth. He loves Amelia. He loves her money. These are your assumptions. These are facts. Weber placed the small mirror with the black stain on the desk. Result of the test: arsenic in the powder the Count brought from Strasbourg. Shanburn glanced at the mirror, did not touch it. And what does this prove? That the powder contains an impurity, a manufacturing defect? At such concentration, accidents do not happen. Even if so, Shanburn hesitated, that does not mean the Count knew. He knew. How do you know he knew? Shanburn's voice sharpened. I read symptoms and patterns. Every time the Count brings something to my patient, she worsens. When he is absent, she improves. Too many coincidences. Shanburn stood and began pacing. Listen, doctor, I appreciate your concern, but what you propose is scandal. Invitations have been sent, contracts signed. If we accuse the Count now, your niece is being killed, Weber interrupted. Does that not concern you? Shanburn turned sharply. Of course it concerns me, but I cannot destroy a nobleman's reputation on the basis of what? Your intuition? A black stain on a mirror? It is scientific evidence. It is your word against his. Do you understand what will happen if you persist? You will be ridiculed, or worse, sued for slander. The Count's family will crush you. You will lose everything. That does not stop me. It should. Shanborn straightened. Dr. Weber, I respect your profession, but I advise you to remain within its boundaries. Treat patients. Do not play detective. He paused. I would also appreciate it if you transferred my niece's care to another physician. You are dismissing me. I am advising you to step aside for your own good. Weber looked at him and suddenly understood. That expression in Shanborn's eyes, it was not fear, not surprise, it was relief. Relief that someone knew the truth and could do nothing about it. You knew, Weber said quietly, from the beginning. That is absurd. That is why you approved this marriage. A ruined count who could not support a wife for even a year. It did not matter, because she was never meant to live long. You are insane. How much did he promise you? Half? A third? After Amelia's death, he inherits everything, and then shares with you. Payment for cooperation. Get out. Shanborn's face flushed purple. Get out of my office. Weber stopped at the door. If I repeat this to anyone, you will destroy my reputation. The Count already promised the same. You work well together. He left. The corridor was silent. Weber leaned against the wall, struggling to slow his heartbeat. He had accused them both, and neither had been shocked. Not proof, but confirmation. He was alone, almost. He went to Amelia's rooms. Lot opened the door, pale, eyes red from exhaustion. Doctor, thank God. She is very bad. What happened? Her sight. She barely sees. Only light and shadow. She says she cannot feel her fingers. Weber entered the bedroom. Amelia lay in bed. For the first time, he saw her lying down. Her face was chalk white, eyes open, seeing nothing. Who is there? She whispered. Lot, it's Dr. Weber. Doctor? She tried to smile. I'm glad you came. I need to tell you something. He sat beside her, took her hand. Cold, weak pulse. What happened, Amelia? Last night, each word cost effort. Maximilian brought me tea. Lot was gone, fetching medicine. I didn't want to offend him. I drank it. Again, tea. How much? I don't know. A cup. He sat beside me while I drank. Talked about the wedding. About how happy we will be. Tears slipped down her temples. This morning I woke up. I could not see the ceiling. Only white. White everywhere. Weber squeezed her hand. Amelia, listen to me. I know what is happening to you. And I know who is responsible. She turned her head toward him. Blind eyes searching. Do you trust me? Yes. Then listen carefully. Tomorrow evening, there is the winter ball at the Kurhaus. All of Baden-Baden will be there, and I want you to come. But I cannot see. Lot will be with you. I will be with you. You only need to walk in and sit down. The rest is my responsibility." Amelia was silent for a long time. Then she asked quietly, "Is this connected to my illness?" "Yes." "You know the truth?" "Yes, and it is the truth." Her voice trembled. "It will change everything." Weber looked at her, at the blind young woman betrayed by everyone she had trusted. Her fiancé, her uncle, life itself. "Yes," he said softly. "It will change everything." He left the hotel at dusk. The thaw had ended. Frost returned. Puddles froze into thin mirrors. Pedestrians walked carefully across the slippery streets. Weber walked home thinking about tomorrow, about the ball where all of resort society would gather, about the small mirror with the black stain in his pocket, about the words he would have to speak. It was an enormous risk, but there was no other path. Tomorrow he would either save Emilia or destroy himself. There was no third option. January 17th, 1853, the day of the winter ball at the Kurhaus of Baden-Baden, the day that would change everything. But before we speak of the ball, we must speak of the morning. In a small room with drawn curtains, where a blind woman listened to the truth about the man she loved. Weber arrived early, while the city still slept. Lot opened the door silently, eyes red from tears. Amelia sat in the same chair by the window, though the window had long become only a gray blur. "You came," she said when she heard his steps. "I was waiting." He sat beside her and took her hand, cold, weak. "Emilia, what I am about to tell you will hurt. Very much. But you must know. I am ready." Was she truly ready? Weber did not know. But there was no time left for doubt. He told her everything. About the powder with arsenic. About the chocolate and the tea. About the pattern he had discovered. About the Marsh test. About the black stain on the mirror. He spoke slowly, choosing his words, but not softening the truth. Amelia listened without interrupting. She did not cry. Her hand simply grew colder in his. When he finished, she was silent for a long time. Then she asked, "Are you certain?" "Yes, absolutely. Chemistry does not lie, Amelia. Arsenic in the powder is a fact. Your symptoms are a fact. The connection between them is also a fact." She turned her head toward the window she could no longer see. "I loved him." Her voice was empty, like a burned-out candle. "I thought he loved me. When he spoke of our future, of children, of a home, I believed every word. I am sorry. Do not pity me." She turned back toward him. In her blind eyes, something new appeared. Not tears. Steel. "I do not want pity. I want justice." Weber looked at her in astonishment. He had expected hysteria, collapse, denial. Instead, he saw a woman who had taken the blow and had not broken. "Tonight," he said, "there will be the winter ball. All of Baden-Baden will be there. The Count and your uncle." "My uncle." Something trembled in her voice. "You think he knew?" "I believe he knew from the beginning." Amelia closed her eyes. A single tear rolled down her cheek. "Uncle Heinrich. He raised me after my parents died. He called me his little girl." A bitter smile touched her lips. "My little girl. My estate. I need you to be at the ball. Can you do that?" "I can." She opened her eyes. "Lot will guide me. I cannot see, but I can still stand and listen and speak." Weber squeezed her hand. "You are a strong woman, Emilia Schönborn. I was weak and blind, long before I lost my sight. She paused. But that is over. A vast hall decorated with fir garlands and candles. An orchestra playing Strauss waltzes. Ladies in silk and velvet. Gentlemen in black tailcoats. Champagne. Laughter. The glitter of jewels. And among all this splendor, a pale young woman led by her maid. Whispers followed Amelia's entrance. Everyone knew she was ill. Everyone saw how she had changed. Waxen face, unsteady steps, eyes that looked past people. Count von Steinberg noticed her first. He stood by a column with a glass in hand. For a split second his face froze. Then the familiar wide, false smile appeared. "Amelia, my dear." He stepped toward her with open arms. "How wonderful that you could come." "Maximilian." Her voice was calm. "Yes, I came." The smile faltered. "Are you feeling well? Perhaps you should sit. I will stand." Uncle Schönborn appeared beside them, red-faced, agitated. "Amelia, what are you doing here? You need rest." "I need the truth, Uncle." Weber watched from behind a column. The moment was approaching. His heart hammered in his chest. Beside him stood Friedrich Müller, his old friend, and Inspector Klein, whom Weber had visited the previous evening. The inspector had been skeptical, but had agreed to be present. "Now," Weber whispered. He stepped out, crossed the hall. Guests parted before him. Something in his walk, in his expression, made people move aside. "Dr. Weber," the Count said sharply. "What are you doing here?" "But I did not come for you. I came for these people." He gestured to the hall. The music faltered, then fell silent. All eyes turned toward him. "Ladies and gentlemen," Weber said clearly, "I ask for 1 minute of your attention. What I am about to say concerns a crime. A crime that is being committed before your very eyes." A murmur rippled through the hall. "What nonsense is this?" Schönborn snapped. "This man is mad." "Guards." "Wait," said a calm voice. Inspector Klein stepped forward. "I would like to hear the doctor." Schönborn went pale. So did the Count. "Inspector?" Von Steinberg muttered. "Proceed, doctor," Klein said. Weber took the small mirror from his pocket and held it up. On its surface, the black stain gleamed. "This is the result of a chemical test for arsenic, performed on a sample of cosmetic powder given by Count von Steinberg to his fiancée." Silence. "Absolute. The result is positive. The powder contains arsenic in a concentration sufficient to cause slow, fatal poisoning." Weber turned toward the Count. "Fräulein Schönborn used this powder. Afterward, her condition worsened sharply. Nausea, weakness, tingling in the limbs. All classic signs of chronic arsenic poisoning." "It's a lie!" the Count shouted. "I did not know what was in that powder." "You knew," Emilia said. Her voice cut through his. She stood straight, holding Lot's hand. Her blind eyes were aimed directly at him. "You knew, Maximilian, because the powder was not the only gift. Chocolate, tea, everything you brought me with such care. Emilia, my love, you don't understand. I am blind, not stupid." Her voice grew stronger. "Every time you brought me something, I became worse. Every time you were gone, I became better." Dr. Weber saw this. "I did not, because I trusted you." The Count looked around wildly. Faces stared back at him. Understanding was spreading. "It's a conspiracy," he shouted. "This doctor is in love with Emilia. He wants to ruin our engagement." "Interesting theory," Inspector Klein said. "But the doctor has chemical evidence." "Do you have any?" "I bought defective cosmetics, that is all." "Count," Weber said calmly, "where exactly in Strasbourg did you purchase this powder?" "On Rue de la Messagerie, at a perfumery." "Curious, because I sent an inquiry to Strasbourg. No such shop exists on that street." The Count opened his mouth, closed it. "You did not buy this powder Weber continued. You either prepared it yourself or ordered it from someone knowledgeable in poisons. Because arsenic is not an impurity in it, it is the main component. This is enough. Everyone turned. Heinrich Schönborn stood pale as linen. His hands were trembling. Enough, he said. Then again, more quietly, enough. It is pointless, Uncle. Amelia turned her head toward his voice. My little girl. Schönborn's voice broke. I didn't want this. I never wanted this. I did not think he would actually do it, the Count hissed. Be silent, but it was too late. Something inside the Guardian had collapsed. A dam that had held for far too long. It was his idea, Schönborn said hoarsely, pointing at the Count. From the very beginning, he came to me a year ago, said there was a way to solve all problems. His debts, my debts, everything. A murmur rose in the hall. You, Emilia spoke the word like a slap. You agreed, you uncle? He'd promised me a third, Schönborn whispered. A third of your fortune. After you were gone. Silence. A terrible, ringing silence. I thought it was only talk, Schönborn sobbed. I never believed he would truly poison you. And then you became ill, and I understood. But it was already too late. He told me if I spoke, I would go to prison as an accomplice. And you stayed silent, Emilia said. Her voice was dead. You watched me die and said nothing. The Count knew it was over. Weber saw it in his eyes. Calculation, assessment, then a sudden decision. He turned and lunged for the exit. Stop him. But von Steinberg was fast. He shoved through the guests, burst toward the doors, and collided with two policemen waiting outside. Count Maximilian von Steinberg, Inspector Klein said, stepping forward. You are under arrest on suspicion of attempted murder. The Count was led away. Schönborn was taken as well. He did not resist. He merely stood with lowered head, like a man already dead inside. Guests parted as Emilia was guided from the hall. No one spoke. Only whispers, like dry leaves sliding across stone. Weber walked beside her. Silence was enough. Outside, snow was falling. Soft, thick, covering the city in white quiet. Amelia stopped, lifted her face toward the sky. She could not see the snowflakes, but she felt them touch her skin. Is it over? She asked. It is the beginning, Weber replied. 3 months later, April came to Baden-Baden with warmth and the scent of blooming chestnut trees. The snow had long melted. Lichtental Alley was drowned in green. 2 figures walked slowly along the path. A middle-aged man and a young woman. Amelia Schönborn leaned on a cane, but walked on her own. Her sight was returning slowly. First shapes, then colors, then details. Doctors said full recovery was possible. Arsenic had left scars, but had not destroyed her completely. Beside her walked Dr. Weber, not as a physician, as a friend. The trial is set for May, Emilia said. The lawyer says the Count faces hard labor. My uncle too, though perhaps a lesser sentence. How do you feel about that? She was silent for a moment. Strangely, I should hate them, but she shook her head. I am simply tired of hating. I want to live. They reached a bench and sat. Sunlight filtered through branches, painting lace-like shadows on the ground. You saved my life, Emilia said softly. I will never forget that. I only did my duty. No, she turned to him. Her gray eyes, the same eyes that could see again, looked straight into his. You did more. You risked everything for a woman you barely knew. Weber had no answer. What could one say to such words? You know what I thought at the ball? She continued. When my uncle confessed, I thought there are 2 kinds of people in this world. Those who take and those who give. All my life I was surrounded by the first. My father loved me, but even he used me for his plans. My uncle, Maximilian. And you, she smiled. You are the first person who simply gave and asked nothing in return. I am an old, divorced doctor, Weber said. I have nothing to ask for. You are an honest man. That is worth more than titles or fortunes. They sat in silence, listening to birdsong. People passed by, ladies with parasols, gentlemen in light suits. An ordinary spring day in Baden-Baden. What will you do now? Weber asked. I will go to Frankfurt. Then perhaps to Italy. I need time to gather myself again. She paused. And you? I will stay here. I will continue treating Baroness von Krause for her imaginary illnesses. He smiled faintly. That is my life. It could have been a different life, he added quietly, looking at her. You are young, beautiful, wealthy, free. I am old enough to be your father, Emilia. But perhaps I am old enough to be your friend. She took his hand, and that is more than everything else. They sat hand in hand. Two people brought together by fate. Not love, something else, something rarer, something deeper. Weber looked at the blooming chestnut trees and thought how strange life is. A month ago, he woke every morning with emptiness. Now the emptiness was still there, but beside it lived something new, hope, meaning. He did not know what to call it. Will you visit me in Italy? Emilia asked. Perhaps, he said. It is not an answer, but it is the only honest one I can give. She laughed, that same bright, living laugh he had heard on the first day they met at Trinkhall, when she complained about the taste of mineral water. You are a strange man, Dr. Weber, she said, and the best I have ever known. She stood, leaning on her cane, and held out her hand. Goodbye. Not goodbye, he said. Until we meet again. Until we meet again. He shook her hand. She walked away slowly, carefully, but with each step more confidently. Weber watched her until she disappeared around the bend of the alley. Then he stood and walked home. Spring continued. Chestnut trees bloomed. Life moved on. And in the pocket of his coat lay the small mirror with the black stain, a memory of the winter, when he stopped being only a doctor and became a man who dared to see the truth.